أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة ولما يعلم الله الذين جاهدوا منكم ويعلم الصابرين صدق الله العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Brothers and sisters, dear comrades, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Stalkers are weird. Stalkers never just attack somebody. No, they sit lying in dormant, waiting and watching, and they will watch you for a long time. And I've seen some really sad cases in America where for example, a woman, a young girl, she feels like somebody's watching her, and a long time passes, and then terrible things happen thereafter. They're just really strange individuals, and there's this bizarre obsession that people fall into regarding certain people, and then they end up stalking them, and then when they attack hard, and they destroy the evidence thereafter. Now imagine that twisted and warped mentality, except it's in something which is predominantly invisible and something which can travel fast, like really fast. Even when it semi-physically manifests, it can move much faster than another human being. That is essentially what we're talking about when it comes to the jinns. And this is something that has happened and is happening right now for a lot of us. The jinn has identified somebody that it wants to harm for whatever reason, and we've talked about some of the reasons why jinns will harm humans in the previous discussions. And it will just lie dormant, and it will watch and wait. And the reason I'm telling you this is not just to freak you out, it's to make you understand that when I tell you don't play with things like Ouija boards or go to seances or try to play with books like the Lesser Key of Solomon or the Goetia, or don't try to open up an unnecessary means of communication with them, is because sometimes people will do these things and they will put them aside and think, oh, that was just some bogus fun that we had, and they put it aside. It's only years later that they start to see the impacts of what they've done. And by that time, they will have forgotten what they did in the past to attract it. And sometimes it can even jump an entire generation or generations. Okay, so a grandfather of ours has done something to engage with these entities, whether it's some sort of a communicative, a tool of communication like the Ouija board or some other thing, but it still impacts us today. Okay, so please do not go towards these things. And as I said before, and I'll spell it out a little bit more clearly this time, I remember seeing, I think it was a random Reddit thread or something, but somebody was talking about their experiences, and they said, I summoned this entity. It's one of the entities listed in this book. And it's so strange what's happening now, because there's entire forums of these pagans who are discussing these things openly. There's even tutorials now online on YouTube, like in mainstream YouTube websites. You don't even need to go to the dark web or something. It's all coming out into the surface. Tutorials of how to summon jinns and how to do black magic. Okay? Don't play around with these things, because first and foremostly, it is haram. It is forbidden to engage in such things. And secondly, when you play with certain things, you don't know the impacts that it's going to have with you. And I want to give you an example. When I was discussing with one of these exorcists, I was fascinated, obviously, when I came to the Hawza and I met somebody like this. And he was saying how he learnt the science from his grandfather. And one day he had created a circle of salt around himself. And he was just practicing, let me try and push the boundaries of what I can do. And at a certain point, he said, I put my foot outside of the circle of salt. And at that very moment, I was flung from the circle to the other side of the courtyard. And I think I asked him how far was it, and he said a couple of meters. And at that point, his grandfather came out and said, I told you not to play around with these things. It's also a science which, if you enter it, often the enemies, the shayateen among the jinn, will try to harm you and your family. And it's not something that most people would be willing to endure in order to gain knowledge of these kinds of things. The reason I'm giving you this knowledge now is so that, inshallah, you will be better prepared to fight back against them, and so that it will help you to prepare for the zuhur of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. Now just remember that point about the salt circle, because we're going to come back to it, inshallah. Now, we've talked about some of the ways to fight against the jinn, and so far, I hope that it really has hit home how powerful it is for you to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Extremely powerful. And the philosophy behind why mentioning the name of Imam Ali alayhi salam actually makes them afraid. They get scared because you're actually fighting one authority against another. And so what is essentially taking place here is a psychological battle. And just like these entities, when they stalk you, when they try to scare you, frighten you, make you anxious, make you feel pain, depression, whatever it is, what they are trying to do is isolate you, make you feel weak, and basically put you under the authority of these jinn. So you might break down and start begging them, please stop, please, please. That is not going to help. In the same way that if a psychopathic stalker, God forbid, is wanting to, I don't know, harm you, cannibalize you, whatever these freaks do, it doesn't matter how much you beg, because they have already crossed that boundary of kufr. They have become so intertwined with disbelief that there's no conscience left in them. And so begging them is not going to help. You have to fight. You have no choice but to fight. And not only do you have to fight with everything that you have, with all your power and all your strength. So in the same way that they are playing a psychological game with you, trying to make you feel isolated, you feel weak, make you feel like you have no authority, you have to do the same thing back. Tell that thing, you are the one who's not got any power, you are the one who's weak, you are the one who doesn't have any significant authority. It is an extremely important point to really, really grasp here, dear comrades, because in every experience that I have had so far, alhamdulillah, so far it has been a positive experience, and I've managed to help people, whether it was to do with hauntings in their house or other things with family members and stuff like that. It always, this was a very, very big theme, to frighten them with authority. And by the way, it is a very real authority also. And we talked briefly about how Imam Ali alayhi salam would actually kill the jinns. But we're going to talk about that in a little while too. But at this point, I just want to recap and make you understand how important that authority is. When you engage with these shayateen, whether it's in the physical world with the humans, or in the spiritual realm and the mental realm with these entities, these jinns, it's always going to be the same. And it surprises me actually when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has essentially told us that there's two sentient creatures that we've created aside from the angels, humans and jinns. And He's told us that jinns have communities, they have beliefs, they have misconceptions. They're just like humans in that sense. It surprises me when people think, oh, just being spiritual is good enough. Guy, I get that, okay? Saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim is enough for one to walk across water. Isa alayhi salam, that's all he said. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, or by the name of Allah, the compassionate, the merciful. And he started to walk on water. Okay? There are great feats that can be accomplished just by saying the name Allah if you have that level of spirituality. Most people don't. And it's so odd to me that, okay, let's say that there's a psychopathic murderer or robber and he's holding a gun. Are you going to be like, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim? Pull that trigger, baby. It ain't going to do nothing. I doubt it. All right? Nobody's faith is that high. Unless your faith really is that high, unless you're blooming, I don't know, Imam Khomeini or a prophet or an imam or something, yeah, okay, fine. Then you will be able to stop bullets. You're not at that level yet. Maybe one day Allah will take you there, but you're not at that level yet. What do you have to do if somebody's pointing a gun at you? You have to, I don't know, like do some martial arts and pull that gun off them, or pull a gun back on them. Or if there's a psychopath, you're not going to be like, please, 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 beg me. Or you're not going to start saying, A'udhu billah, A'udhu billah. You know, start reciting, let me play the Quran on full blast. Is that going to do anything? Maybe you'll freak out. On that point, I just have to share a story with you. It's one of the stories that we grew up with, and it's really beautiful. So Ayatul Kursi is very, very powerful, right? And it definitely is. And Allah really does protect you with Ayatul Kursi. There was this little girl, and there were robbers who were trying to break into her house. She knew that they were coming. She could hear them. She got really scared. But she was too young and she didn't know how to recite Ayatul Kursi. So in Urdu, in the Urdu language, the word Kursi is just the same as it is in Arabic. It means chair. So she grabbed a chair. She put it in the middle of the room. She just started walking around it saying, Ayatul Kursi, Ayatul Kursi, Ayatul Kursi. And the robbers, ironically, they saw her, they got really scared and they ran away. You know, imagine you're trying to rob somebody and you look inside and there's this little girl just walking around a chair going, Ayatul Kursi, Ayatul. You'd be like, oh, hell no. Let's rob some normal people. We don't know what's going to happen here. So even in an ironic sense, definitely dhikr and the Quran and the adhkar of the Ahlul Bayt, etc., it can all definitely help you. However, that shouldn't be your default, guys. What you should do if somebody is threatening you, threaten them back. I'm going to call the police. Do you think my husband isn't on the way? Oh, there's somebody in the other room. I would start shouting and make it seem like somebody's there, even if they're not. You need to play a psychological game back with them. Everybody understands this when it comes to human beings. For some reason, when it comes to the jinns, because we have become so disconnected from the reality of the jinns, we become completely irrational. And that irrationality is not going to help us. No, we need to know how to fight them properly. Okay, so this authority is a very important idea. And that's what makes A'udhu Billah and calling the name of Imam Ali alayhi salam so powerful. Like scientifically, they're terrified of the name of Imam Ali because he killed so many of their ancestors, of the shaitans. Okay, so you need to come with a level of authority, with power. Okay, and we talked about tahara. Why tahara is so important? Because even if you can mentally get rid of them, physically, if you want to get rid of them, it's very simple. They can't exist without najasa and without dirt, bacteria, microbes. Okay? Also, the willpower and the strength, which we've been talking about. Not only do you need to come with authority, but you need to understand your own spiritual power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you an incredible amount of power. You need to understand your own willpower, your own strength, your own ability to do things that other people could only ever imagine. And you've already done so much. You've made it this far. Dear comrades, you need to know your own potential. Okay, and this is a recurring theme, and I've talked about it before, but please, 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 open the Quran if you don't believe me and see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself tells you. Okay, you have the potential to be among those chosen ones of Imam Mahdi. But these entities, as we mentioned before, may have seen you already in the future aiding the cause of Imam Mahdi, and they did specific things to slow you down. Okay. And the other thing that I want to talk about here is the speech element. Okay, you really can't underestimate how important the power of speech is. I remember hearing at one point that in self-defense classes, your most powerful weapon is not your fists, it's not your body, it's actually your voice. This is something that they tell, especially to women. Your voice is really, really powerful. Now, we can understand that in terms of a mugger or a person who's trying to assault you. You shout really, really loudly. And if you don't know this, then you should know this, that if anybody is trying to attack you, you need to speak up. Right? And when you speak up, it will, when you speak up, especially when you shout, it will surprise your enemy. It will make them stunned. It will make them feel like, oh no, other people have heard this. So if you look at the way that abusers work, is they keep you silent. They keep you silent. Now, I'm sure that there are so many people, unfortunately, who have been abused in various different ways, or they're trapped in abusive relationships. And what the abuser will do is make you isolated. He'll make you feel like you shouldn't talk, and if you do talk about this abuse, then you are the one who is in the wrong. And if you watched my previous Fire at Will, which is about the corruptions of Iran, I mentioned that very important verse where it says, publicly stating words of evil is not allowed, except in the case of somebody who has been oppressed or abused. Okay, so this is one thing that they do. They try to make you so squashed, unable to speak, unable to express yourself. And that is how they want to keep you docile, so that you can be controlled and manipulated. You need to learn to speak to other people about your problems. Speak to other people about the way that the abuser is treating you. And that's why the Quran, I mean, look at how much light there is in the Quran, and look at how many solutions the Quran has. It has a solution to every single problem that humanity can face. So just as a slight side note here, if you notice what's happened in the Western world is they've had this whole #MeToo movement, where many women are coming forward and they're speaking up against so many politicians and celebrities who have abused them in the past. Now, if they never spoke up, those politicians would never have been exposed. All right? They are, in one sense, heroic, and they've actually applied unknowingly, this verse of the Quran. And for the longest time, if you look at any of their cases, they were too scared to speak up. Who's going to believe me? What if I harm such and such reputation? What if I harm this? What if I harm that? What if these are powerful men? What if I get harmed if I say anything? Okay, so it's actually a scary thing to step out of the blanket of abuse and actually speak up against it. Now, I believe it's happening a lot in the Muslim world, but because so many of our children, youths, particularly sisters, but men as well, because so many of our people are terrified of the reputation of Islam being damaged, they don't speak up. And in doing so, they are actually prolonging the abuse. And those people are actually going to go out and abuse other people just like you've been abused. And abuse can take place in all sorts of different ways. But Whatever way it might be that you might be being oppressed, guys, you need to talk about it. At least let someone know. And if those people tell you to keep quiet and not talk about it, then you need to analyze for yourself whether you need to speak up about it or not. Okay, because there is so much corruption right now that if you don't speak up against it, then how is it going to be destroyed? How are other people going to be become aware of it? Okay, so this is in the human world. The jinns operate in a very similar fashion, where they don't want you to speak. And if you remember the example that I gave where I was having sleep paralysis and I actually couldn't speak, that's the kind of state that they want you to be in. And some of us have experienced things which, if we say them, we're literally afraid that if we say them, people are going to call us crazy or they won't believe us. And we're surrounded by people who might not be evil, but because this reality hasn't dawned on them, they themselves don't want to hear about it because they don't want to face that reality. Because why would you want to face a problem that you yourself don't have any solution for? You'd rather ignore it. Okay? But I'm trying to show you that not only should you not ignore it, but you do have the solutions and you can fight against it. Okay? So recognize the power of your voice, dear comrades. You have so much power in just the way that you say things. And when you're interacting with these entities, if ever like you're in an interaction and you feel like something is there, speak to it. I remember when I was younger, I read something that freaked me out. It said that there's a type of jinn on one of these Muslim websites. Absolutely freaked me out. It said, there is a type of jinn that will appear at the foot of your bed. It has extremely pale skin and like red eyes or something. And it just stares at you. And when you see it, it will say, Assalamu alaikum. And then it said, do not say wa alaikum salam. And it just ended. That has freaked me out for the longest time. And it made me terrified of ever speaking to something if I saw it. Terrified. Now I have a suspicion that such things have been spread by the enemies. Because imagine if you're scared to even speak, that's it. There's no way you can fight against it. And when something happens, you'll notice what happens with you. You freeze up and you don't know what to say except for scream. And sometimes what comes out of your mouth might sound like, you might say mummy or daddy or something like that. But sometimes you might start reciting the Quran, but your voice shouldn't, you shouldn't show fear, is what I'm trying to get at. Your voice shouldn't be shaking. If it is shaking, even then it's better to speak than to stay silent. Okay, so when you're saying this a'udhu billah, your voice might be shaking because of the fear, but you need to learn to overcome that fear and say it loudly, clearly, confidently, and understand that yes, this entity is here, but I have the ability to fight it. All right? And you're going to find something very special about yourself when you do this. You're going to realize that, oh my God, I'm braver than I thought I was. I remember this video. They were doing this. I'm not going to tell you that. In fact, it's kind of irrelevant. I'll just tell you the very, very short version of it. There was this woman who they played a prank on, a black woman from America. And the black community in America, I've noticed that they do have this inclination towards God, towards, they might be Christian, but at least they believe in God, right? And the only time you can really test if somebody genuinely believes in God is in a time of absolute terror. Absolute terror. And they played a really, really scary, unfairly scary prank on her. And she was trapped as well, and she couldn't escape. I think it was called Fear Tactics, if I'm not mistaken. It's something I watched ages ago. And they literally, they dressed up this small person, midget. I don't know what's not offensive nowadays. A person who has dwarfism. And they dressed him up like this with little horns and blood all over his body. And they literally convinced this woman, they convinced her that this is the son of the devil that's just been born in front of her. If I was in that situation, I think I'd have a heart attack and die on the spot, because that was so blooming terrifying, and she totally believed it. She completely believed it. And they told the short guy who's dressed up like a literal demon to say, worship me. Man, for all my knowledge and everything that I have, I really pray that that this isn't true yet, but if I had been in that situation back then, I'd be like, hell, I'm doing sujood, I'll do full prostration, just let me live. I don't know what's going on. This is terrifying, you know. I would be freaked out. I would be so scared. But what did that woman do? She screamed, she shouted at the top of her voice, no, I will never worship you. I don't love you. I love God. It filled my heart with so much joy, and I was so surprised. And nobody in the comments was pointing it out, how almost miraculous that moment actually is. She said that she genuinely believed that this is a demonic entity that's just been born in front of her. There's all these scientists behind windows staring at her. She is surrounded by a perception of an authority which is entirely false, but she believes it to have authority over her. The next moment she could be killed. And yet she chooses to shout at the top of her voice, I love God and I'll never worship you. This woman, at least at that very moment, she has more iman than most of the Muslims I've ever met in my life. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. And you have to understand, if you were in such a situation, would you have the courage to say something like that? Inshallah, let's train ourselves so that we do have that amount of faith and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? But bringing this back to our discussion, dear comrades, our faith needs to be at such a level that nothing frightens us. We put ourselves into the hands of Allah. And this is the only way that we can possibly fight against the demonic entities of evil. Unless we have such a level of faith, how are we going to do it? We'll buckle in the face of fear at any moment. And see, so now you're going to, inshallah, understand why I'm saying this in the context of preparing for Imam Mahdi. How are we supposed to actually become the soldiers of Imam Mahdi if we have not fought against the tyrants in the world of the men or the jinn? One or the other, at least one or the other, because all of this is just a training process. There's a beautiful line in Batman Begins where he's having a fight with the prisoners, and one of the prisoners is a big burly guy. He's a huge tattooed, grisly-looking chap, and he goes, you are in hell, and I am the devil. And Bruce Wayne punches him and he says, you're not the devil, you're just practice. Okay? And that's another thing that we have to understand. Most of these entities, even if they are satanic, are not the bigger entities that we might have to encounter going forward. These are just the lesser entities. These are very, very small ones, and they're actually very easy to dispatch of. Going forward, we might actually physically see a lot of these Hindu gods that we've witnessed Hindus worshipping, the gods on murals in the Western world, which have been depicted with great big horns and goat legs and things like that. Baphomet himself, the goat-legged god of the self-proclaimed Satanists of today, we might physically see that. All right, because as I said, they physically manifest when they have a big enough sacrifice and enough microbes and dedication from their followers to actually bring all those microbes together and actually physically manifest. Okay, and also, if you couple this with the idea that the modern scientists in CERN and places like that are actually actively opening up portals So when you see something like that, that's going to be the real test. Are your words still going to, your words of Iman still going to come out of your mouth at that point? If you see a 30-foot tall man, just a 30-foot tall man with the head of a goat, don't need to be too imaginative. Just that is enough to terrify the life out of most people. Okay, so you need to have such a level of faith and understanding of this that even if it comes to that, you will stand in the face of it and say, I love Allah, I love God, and I will never submit to you. And furthermore, you need to have the ability to fight against it, which inshallah, if you can fight the lower level demons, then you'll be able to get to the higher level demons. All right. Okay, so now before we go into the physical elements behind this, I want to talk a little bit more about salt. Salt is really important. So I mentioned at the beginning about how he created a circle of salt. You might have seen it in movies like Hocus Pocus, which is about witches and witchcraft. You might have watched it, right? Way back in the day. Do you guys remember Hocus Pocus? Am I old? Hocus Pocus, they recently made a remake or a second movie, which I never watched and never will watch, hopefully. I don't want anything to do with that movie. But the point is, unless it's for research purposes, actually. Research. Anyway, so the movie actually shows that at one point the girl was making a circle of salt around herself. And this is a common theme that you'll find throughout Hollywood movies, a circle of salt. Why? There's a reality behind it. It is a reality, okay? Even in the recent movie, what was it called? Weapons. You guys have to watch Weapons. That's your homework. Watch the movie Weapons. It's a recent movie because Hollywood, in a very sinister way, is just laying it out on the table now. With movies like Hereditary and Weapons, they've far, far surpassed the level of Poltergeist, which is so false in its depiction of what paranormal activity is. They used to say in these Hollywood movies that they're just dead people and their ghosts are coming back, which is entirely false. Entirely false. But that's the picture that they pushed so far. Now they're coming to the surface. Jinns really do exist. And they're not doing it in a fashion which shows you that, okay, they do exist, therefore the Quran is correct, the Bible is correct, the prophets were truthful. They're not doing it in that sense. They're doing it in a completely different sense. How? Pushing the idea that these entities are real, and the way that you combat them is through pagan means, generally speaking. Or there is no way to fight against them. Like Exorcist. The movie Exorcist, possibly the most terrifying movie ever. Oh, just thinking about that movie makes me cringe. They begin the movie with the adhan. The adhan, the Islamic call to prayer. Can you believe that? The most terrifying movie possibly ever to have existed. It was banned in its time. People had heart attacks apparently in the cinema and died on the spot out of fear. And the entire theme of the movie is how the Catholic pastor, the Catholic priest who comes to perform the exorcism has no power, and he actually has to kill himself in the end. So they've already instilled through generations of their movies this idea that religion cannot defeat them. And now, after people have already been indoctrinated with this idea that the cross doesn't have any power, the cross doesn't have any power. It definitely doesn't have any power. But the way that they pushed that idea was so heavily religious, anti-religious rather. They've already set the groundwork for pushing the idea that religion won't save you from them. Now they're coming out with these realities that, yeah, jinns exist. Yep, black magic exists. Yep. Salt really is a barrier between us and them. Yep. What's the solution? Bow to their authority. and then you couple that with the idea that they're going to stage a fake alien invasion, And people are going to say, oh yeah, we should totally listen to these aliens. They're not jinns, they're not demons, they're supremely intelligent beings from a different planet. Okay, so they've set the groundwork for whatever schemes that lie ahead of us, and we need to be very much prepared for anything. Even if it doesn't happen, we need to know the realities, right? Okay, so salt. When I approach some of these exorcists, and I noticed a recurring theme of salt. And this is a remedy. There's certain things that you can do with salt that will repel the shayateen, right? And inshallah, you'll learn how that works. But when I was given a certain thing that I can do with salt, I asked, why does this work? How does this work? And I remember telling people way back in the day when they were asking me, like a couple of years ago, maybe around about 3 to 5 years ago, people were saying, well, how does the salt thing work? And I was saying, I don't know, there's something about salt which retains information. So when you recite Quran to salt, it actually retains that information. It's almost like a message that you're sending to the shayateen, to the jinns, to stay away from this area, and they can hear it. It's really, really fascinating, actually. And just before I started this lecture, I was like, let me look it up and see if there's anything like scientifically which gives credence to this idea. And just now I found it. It's really fascinating that it's one of the few minerals you can hear. It makes a sound. Isn't that really weird? I didn't know that. Large salt crystals under stress can produce tiny flashes of light, a phenomenon called triboluminescence. When crystals fracture, electrical charges separate and then recombine, producing faint flashes. This effect is especially noticeable in some candies that contain sugar, but salt can exhibit it too under the right conditions. Thank you, ChatGPT. There's a whole discussion that needs to be had about how jinns can actually enter into technology, and technology is being used all the time. Black Mirror. You've all heard of Black Mirror, right? The series, the Netflix series, Black Mirror, is all about how technology is going really scary, goosebump style mini stories which are telling you, subliminally warning you actually, that this is the society that you're headed towards. Anyway, it's called Black Mirror because it's literally called a scry. Black magicians use a black mirror to communicate with those entities. You can't always see them. But if you look at a black mirror, you can actually see them. And this is not something that I would recommend for you to do, but you hold it like that and you can see if there's something standing behind you. I mean, everything that these people have done have slowly implemented the stepping stones to an entirely paganistic society, which actually accepts the authority of these entities. So our ancestors, our good ancestors, have been telling us for millennia that these entities exist. The Quran came, the Bible came before it. They've always been telling us, listen, demons exist. We didn't listen to that. But now we're accepting this whole demonology, which is being presented by who? We know who. And I'm not going to say who those people are, but you know who they are, right? They are the ones who have actually pushed this entire idea. And now they're slowly implementing a demonic world. But anyway, not only are they doing that, but on the flip side, those who should have armed us against these things, they didn't arm us to a lesser or greater extent, and they just threw us into the realm of superstitious beliefs. Anyway, so salt is really weird. There's something about it. Did you know that every grain of salt is like cube? It's a cube? That's strange, isn't it? Did you know, and this is really interesting, it's one of those things that I really like to hear about. Salt is transparent. It's completely transparent. Now you look at it and you're like, no, it's not, it's white. No, that's just because it's refracting light because of the crystallization. But it's actually transparent, just like ice is completely transparent. But when you see it in the form of snow, it looks like it's white, but it's not. It's actually transparent. So anyway, the reason I'm telling you this is because there's something in salt which it can retain information, or there's just something about it that can send off a message. Okay, so what I want you to do, inshallah, if you have been suffering from something, is I want you to take some salt. It's going to sound very, very strange. Very strange, but I want you to take what I'm saying. Don't take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt, okay? If you've really been experiencing things and you don't know what to do about it, take some salt. Put it in front of you and recite Surah Jinn 7 times to the salt. Just imagine that the salt can hear you. Recite Surah Jinn. Now again, bearing in mind everything that we've discussed before, you need to recite it in a way that you can understand it. It's not sufficient to just play Surah Jinn on a phone, for example. No, you need to say it with consciousness. That consciousness is going to be transferred to the salt. I know this sounds crazy, guys, but just hear me out. And when you do this, you're going to see almost immediate results. Recite Surah Jinn, so read the English if you don't understand the Arabic, along with the Arabic, as best as you can, to the salt 7 times. This is the remedy that was given to me, and this is what I have used previously, and it has always worked. Alhamdulillah. What are you going to do with that salt? You're going to take that salt, which you've recited Surah Jinn to 7 times, so imagine that information is now with the salt. You're going to mix it with water. And then what you're going to do with that water is do ghusl with it. And you all know how to perform ghusl, just the ordinary, every ghusl is the same. You wash your head and your neck, then you wash the right side of your body and the left side of your body. You do that, dear comrades, and you tell me it doesn't make a difference. That's one of the basic remedies, and I wish people had told me about it before, but I've heard it not from one person, but I think at least from 2 different exorcists who are completely unrelated. They never met each other. They're from completely different parts of the world. They both told me to do exactly the same thing. Now, obviously, it's going to depend on your level of iman and the amount of information that you can put into the salt. But when you do this, it's going to have, inshallah, miraculous effects on you. And it's almost like a neutralization. Okay? Okay, so that's one of the things, and we'll talk more about that maybe at another time. I'm going to wrap it up a little bit here. But the idea is that since these entities speak telepathically, there are certain things which telepathically can retain information. And then when somebody else sees that information, they can absorb that information. And that will help us maybe to understand a little bit about how those, the symbology side of things and the numerical side of things actually works. Because when somebody intentionally endows information into a symbol, which is made out of, salt is the purest form, and that's why you'll see that people who are doing white magic, so to speak, who are trying to neutralize these effects among the Muslims, for example, they'll use salt. But they will use things like najasa, like blood, for example, okay? But they'll be doing the same thing, making a circle or certain symbols, okay? So when you see next time in a movie that there's a 6-pointed star or a 5-pointed star or some other weird symbol, yeah, that's essentially what they're doing. They're communicating with those entities and essentially inviting them. So what this thing that I've just given you is it's the opposite. It's not inviting them, it's repelling them. It's pushing them away. So if you read Surah Jinn, what is it telling you? It's basically telling you the entire picture. This is the reality, and this is what I conform to. and it's like, boom, they get pushed away. They're like, oh my God. And you have to understand that, all right, I'll give you this example. Once upon a time when I was in the UK, this really nasty, chavvy guy, he started to shout at my auntie. He started saying F this and blinding this, and just for no reason. I think he was just having a bad day. So naturally I go over and I'm like, oh, that's it now. The gloves are off and I'm ready to fight him. And I wanted to fight him. I wanted to fight him. But when I started yelling at him, he completely backed off and he got scared. Apparently there's something really scary about me. Alhamdulillah, I have a scary trait about me. But anyway, after I had shouted him down, what did I do? I was like, my auntie and my friend, my brothers were there. They were like, oh, we'll back you up. I was like, no, all of you go inside the house. I'll deal with this. I started preaching to this boy. I was like, don't you believe in God? Which is really funny in the context, because if you knew that area of Kent, these guys are completely disconnected from religion entirely. Like, they laugh at the concept of God. They're complete kafirs. That's the kind of environment I grew up in, right? But I started preaching to him, and eventually he just went really soft, really mellow, and he just said, yeah, I won't do it again, and he walked off. Okay, why am I giving you this example? Because jinns are the same, guys. Sometimes they come with malicious intent, but when you show that you have authority and power, and then you preach to them, they, like, the worst case scenario is they just go, oh man, I'm sick of hearing this, and they just go away. So do you know when they say, oh, read the Quran, it gets rid of jinns and shayateen? It's the same thing with humans. When you start, like, do an experiment. Do an experiment, guys. Sit in a room with a group of Muslims, Shias, you're sitting there. Just open the Quran and start reading it. Did you know the Quran said this? You won't get 2, 3, 4, maximum 5 verses in before you'll notice certain people, even though they've been sitting there for a long, long time, they'll just stand up and they'll walk out. They just don't want to hear it. Or they'll try and change the subject. You can do this yourself with humans. Understand that it's a very similar story with jinns also. You start reading the Quran, the message of the Quran, they don't like it. The shayateen among the jinns, they will get up and they'll just leave. They don't want to be preached to. And sometimes what happens is they hear the message of the Quran and they accept it. They become Muslim. You will be rewarded on the Day of Judgment. It'll be like, oh, you made this person and this person and this person Muslim, and you'll be like, but I didn't. I didn't. And you'll be told they weren't humans, they were jinns. You didn't even realize that that's what you did. Now, this is the best case scenario, because when they become Muslims, they don't necessarily leave. They become more attracted to you and they want to stay around you. Now they won't bother you anymore, but they'll start to guard your presence from the shayateen among the jinns. All right, and this is going to sound very strange and very unfamiliar to a lot of people out there, and it's just so bizarre that you might think that it's crossing the boundaries between black magic and white magic. No, it really is this simple. And when I was talking to those exorcists also, that's one of the things I asked them, because it's very difficult to get information out of them. They don't want to talk about these things, because when you gain a knowledge, it's like a power. And you don't want to give that power to other people. Alhamdulillah, I've crossed that line now, and I'm just like, take it. Quickly, just take it. I'm going to just say it in lectures. Whoever wants it, just take it. It's yours. But one of the things that I asked is, how is this working? And the conclusion that I came to, and he agreed to it, and he said, yeah, you figured it out, that's it, is when you talk to, basically they have police. There are police in the jinn world. Those police, just like we have police in the human world, amongst the jinn there are police as well. And the job of those good police, those Muslims, is to hunt down the evil jinns. Okay? And the evil jinns, for the most part, are terrified of the good jinns. Just like they're terrified of us in the real world. Don't think that, oh, just because, America and the Israelis are throwing bombs on us, they're brave. They're not. Absolute utter cowards. They couldn't face us in the real battlefield. They just couldn't. And even the Quran tells us, right, they're never going to fight you unless they're in great big fortifications. They can't handle it. So in the jinn world, it's a very similar story. Even the greatest of the ifrit and jinn and iblis, these guys are scared of the Muslims among the jinns. May Allah bless those Muslims. And you've heard about the legends of Zafar jinn, who was there when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was massacred in Karbala, and all of these kinds of things. There's a real reality behind them. Now you have to ask yourself, if there's a reality behind them, why can't they help us? They do all the time. Okay, so you need to have as much power as you can to not only repel them, but to convert them. I'm not talking about capturing them. I don't believe in, imprisoning jinns in your rings and things like that. I'm not talking about anything like that. No, I wouldn't do that to a human. So why would I do that to a jinn? All right? No, I'm talking about putting out a message so that they themselves can understand the realities of Islam. And at that point, not only do they not harm you anymore, they actually help you. And I want to give you an example of this because this absolutely blew my mind. It blew my mind. When I was searching through the hadith, I found one hadith where Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he says, he's talking to the Shia, he's talking to the Muslims, he's talking to the believers, he said, when you're lost, if you ever get lost in the wilderness or, I don't know, anywhere, call out to Salih. Salih. He said, Ya Amirul Mu'mineen, who is Salih? He said, he's a Muslim among the jinns. And it's his job to guide you whenever you're lost. Now, if you talk to people, generally speaking, in the Muslim world and say, call out to a jinn to help you in a certain situation, they'll say, because of the mentality that's been cultivated by our enemies, actually, and the jahiliyyah that exists in the Muslim community, they'll say, no, that's black magic, or that's haram, or, at least that's terrifying. I'm not doing that. What if he really comes? I'd rather be lost. I'd rather be lost than be lost in the woods. Imagine you're lost in the woods and you go, Saleh, Saleh, and then you just hear a voice going this way. And then you'd be like, oh hell no. I'm just packed. I'm setting up my tent. I'm waiting for somebody to rescue me right here, right now. I ain't going in that direction. The reason that's the case is because we're so unfamiliar with the reality of these sentient creatures which are all around us, and we're constantly engaging and interacting with them. We just don't know it. Right? Okay, but Imam Ali alayhi salam is telling you that there is a jinn called Salih, and he's a good jinn. He's a decent jinn. He's a Muslim. He's a follower of the Ahlul Bayt. May Allah bless him, and he's still here today. We are so blessed to have Salih with us today. And his role, actually, after the ghaibah, has transformed. His role, this is something that only I'm going to tell you. I really, really doubt that you will hear this from any other scholar. I haven't read it in any book. I haven't heard it from anyone. I'm telling you personally. Usually when I'm talking to you, I'm telling you from research and blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling you from the Quran and the Hadith, or something that my teachers have told me. This time, allow me this little gift. Let me tell you something purely from myself. And that is, Salih is with us today, alhamdulillah. And his role is not just to guide people who are lost, but actually to guide people towards Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Don't ask me how I know that, okay? But I'm telling you that that's the reality. And if you want to, I believe that if you've made it this far in the lecture series, you do trust me. I don't have any reason to lie. I was talking to Sayyid Abdullah, and sometimes something I do with Sayyid Abdullah, he's one of my best friends, best comrades, may Allah bless him, is I say to him, hey man, just tell me something that the Shia have made up. Just tell me some rubbish that the Shia themselves have made up. And I do it to trigger him. If you've watched the podcast, that's something I love to do. I just like to say something just to trigger him so he gets angry and he starts talking about it. And he says to me, Abba Saleh. Abba Saleh, for those of you who don't know, is one of the titles of Imam Mahdi. I said, what's wrong with that? They say it all the time. They say it in their songs of poetry. You see it in the street, down my street. It says Abba Saleh on the road. It's a common epithet of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. What's wrong with that? He said, Shia has made it up. Never have the Ahlul Bayt actually told us that one of the names of Imam Mahdi is Abba Saleh. I said, where did it come from then? And then he said, Imam Ali said there's a jinn that if you're lost, you call out to him. You call him Abba Saleh. You call him Saleh. So they took this name and they applied it to Imam Mahdi. Now, okay, so let's put two and two together here. On the one hand, Imam Ali alayhi salam told us to call out to Saleh if we're ever lost. On the other hand, there's this Abba Saleh, somebody along the lines, they attributed this to Imam Mahdi. So they gave the title of a jinn to Imam Mahdi. Isn't that really weird? And I think what they were originally trying to explain, when you bring my experience into the mix, is this reality. Saleh is a jinn, and today he is helping people to go towards Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, because essentially we're all lost now. We are all lost. Without the Imam of the time, we are all lost. And it's very fortunate for us that we have such people, just like we have great scholars like Imam Khomeini in the human world. In the jinn world, we also have great individuals who are helping people and guiding them towards the path of Mahdawiyah. Okay, so that's where the confusion comes in. Abba Saleh is not a legitimate name of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. It's actually the name of this jinn. And by the way, this jinn, may Allah bless him, is incredibly proud that one of the he has been associated to the Imam of the time, through this name, where they actually give the name of the jinn actually to Imam Mahdi instead. All right. So inshallah, I've said lots of doom and gloom stuff, like we're going to see great demons and Baphomet physically manifesting. Inshallah, we are also going to see when Imam Mahdi alayhi salam appears at the Kaaba and the Zuhur happens, we're also going to see incredible things. Those same armies who perhaps they wanted to help Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but they couldn't, we're going to see those same armies, with Imam Zaman. And I wouldn't be surprised if Saleh, may Allah bless him, is one of them, one of those elite soldiers and commanders of that faction. There's really good jinns out there, guys. Really, really good jinns. There's actually the movie Spirited Away, Japanese animated movie Spirited Away, which was a really, really beautifully made movie. But that's all it's about. There's all these entities, and they look strange and bizarre, and they behave in strange manners. There's a reality behind that. And so not only am I teaching you to fight, I want you to understand that you don't always need to fight. All right? Sometimes you might harm a jinn when you don't mean to. They have children just like we have children, and we don't want to put ourselves into a position where we harm them because it's just not nice. I'm not going to say it's going to have repercussions, but even if we do it accidentally, it's just a horrible thing to do, because just like people, they're real, and you're killing it by accident. So I'm just telling you that as a prerequisite to what I'm about to tell you now. You can physically fight them, and this is going to be kind of the last thing, at least in this batch of lectures that I'm going to tell you. you can physically fight them. So just like when they physically manifest, right, they conjure all these microbes to themselves, and they, at that point, that's when they can, they can make sounds, because they're physically manifesting and making these very human sounding sounds. But they can physically manifest to the point where they touch you, they hurt you, they harm you, they bite you, they scratch, etc., or they move objects. Well, at that point, they're actually at their most vulnerable. Because if at that point you hurt them, which is it is totally within the realm of possibility, they can genuinely get hurt. And when a jinn dies, that's it. Their soul, just like us, they're going to disappear, and they're going to go into the akhirah, and there's no coming back for them. So jinns are actually terrified of death, just like we are terrified of death. Okay? And so don't think that when it's physically there, you can see it, you can't harm it. You totally can. And by the way, this explains why they are so shy. In every video that you see of a jinn, it pokes its head out and it immediately hides. In almost every video that you see or capture, or every incident that I've heard of people talking about them, they run away from you. They hide from you. If you really look at this in a subjective manner, humans in many cases are the real monsters. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but really we are. And if you look at the pattern of what the Quran has been trying to tell us all this time, is that you're the ones who did this. Humans are the ones who actually have the most power. Even if you go to the ultimate jinn, who's not the master of any of them, but the Iblis, Satan himself, what can he do? I'm not saying that eventually he can't physically manifest and you can't physically see him, that he doesn't physically come in the form of an old man. He does do all those things. However, in the grand scheme of things, what can he do? Nothing. He can whisper. He can whisper, that's it. And then when you really break it down and you look at what all these entities have done, they've done a vast amount of damage, but it's been in a very cowardly way. Just like a cowardly human would behave, hiding, hitting from the shadows, not ever getting caught. All right, so this information will help you in your ability to overcome the fear, first and foremostly, but it will also help you to understand that you can physically damage them. All right, and when the jinn knows that you know that you can physically damage it, that jinn's going to run for the high hills, all right, because it does not want to lose its life, just like any human being would not want to lose its life. All right, so just like you would with any human invader, take a weapon, a bat. I don't know, my preference is a baseball bat. I love baseball bats as household weapons because I don't want to really hurt anybody. I just want to defend myself, and I just want to make sure that they are injured enough that they can't do anything and I can call the police or whatever. Or if you really must, grab another type of weapon. But the reason I'm being cautious about this is because when you are in a heightened sense of fear, you don't want to be sporadic. If you're really, really scared, don't accidentally hurt somebody that you don't want to hurt. Okay? It might just be somebody, some stupid relative of yours who wants to play a prank on you. Do you really want to kill them? All right, I'm talking about a specific situation where you know for a fact that there is an entity, a jinn, and that jinn is in a specific location, right? At that point, yeah, you can get a weapon and you can actually harm them. Okay? So when it comes to the greater battles that lie ahead, when you hear these hadith that, for example, Imam Mahdi or the Holy Prophet or Isa alayhi salam, they're going to kill Iblis with their sword, yeah, there's a reality behind it. When you hear these legends that Imam Ali killed these entities with Dhul Fiqar, yeah, there's a reality behind it. Okay? When they physically manifest, they look the most terrifying. They look like the most powerful things on earth. That is when they're at their most vulnerable. And I guess this is a beautiful point to leave you at. And that is that, look, in this world, it's so ironic that the evil entities that exist in terms of like the political evil entities like America and Israel, even if you look at the formation of Israel itself, it was only in the modern age that they've actually physically manifested. I'm talking about something completely unrelated almost to the jinns right here. Israel never existed before. Now it's physically manifested. They think that they're at their most powerful, and in some ways they are, but they're also at their most vulnerable too. Okay, so if you think about that in the same sense as the jinns, it's the same thing. Okay, so I'm not even going to give you a recap because I've talked for so long, and if you've made it this far, may Allah bless you, may Allah strengthen you, may Allah increase your knowledge, and if you have experiences of your own, or if you have other puzzle pieces that you would like to contribute, then please do, leave comments and, share your thoughts, because all of it contributes to, understanding the greater picture. What's one thing that I can leave you with? All right, so read Ayatul Kursi also. Ayatul Kursi, Salih, the great jinn, may Allah bless him, he has recommended this, to recite Ayatul Kursi. It's one of his favorite surahs, and if you ask him what is a good way to fight against them, he will tell you Ayatul Kursi. So Ayatul Kursi, of course, it has all of the greatness and the authority of power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's talking about how the throne of Allah is extending across the heavens and the earth. So of course, when a person has that mentality and they understand the greatness of Allah, nothing will scare you, and nothing will really be a big enough challenge for you to face. وصلوا على محمد وآل محمد.